Jason, how do I take this off?
Yeah.
Just put it off on
Yeah, so,
the show.
Yeah.
so first I want to, I'm very happy to be here again. I was here, I think, a year or two ago. I don't quite remember, but I wanted to, as I was thinking about the question that Professor Ellie posed in terms of identifying potential winners and losers. I thought it was interesting because as an analyst, when we think about winners and losers in the cloud space or the broader media space, there's various considerations that we have to, think about. So obviously the consumer behavior is a big part of it, and the competitive environment, the backdrop for technology advancements and innovation, and of course regulators play a big role in kind of final shakeout of the winners and the losers. But I thought some of the presentations I've listened to was quite interesting. I just want to state upfront that I don't think that, I don't subscribe to the idea of the winner take all, with all due respect, just simply because I think that, from what we've observed, it's not going to be a zero-sum game. We think that this is going to be a marathon and not a sprint, and I think when all is said and done, there's going to be there's going to be a shakeout, but also we think that there's going to be winners that no one might have predicted or maybe don't even exist today. With that as a backdrop, I'm going to touch on some of the points that I said might impact how we see the environment. One of the things that we have noticed since the last time that we came here is an explosion of consumer choices, right? So this whole idea of direct to consumer, has become even more, popular and much faster than one would have expected. The lines between linear and on-demand continues to blur faster than one might have thought. So the whole idea of transition from traditional to internet, television. And this is all happening at the same time that, pay TV subscriber losses are, have persisted. So the whole idea of, cord cutting is still alive and well. We're seeing, subscriber losses anywhere from, 1.5% to 2% declines per year. So what that has, kind of manifested itself in the substitution of online video. So OTT substitution has accelerated, which is no surprise there. What might surprise you is that this is also being driven by older adults. So it used to be that millennials were the traditional drivers, conventional wisdom, but we're seeing now in the last couple of years that older adults are also contributing to this whole effect of migration to to the online video. So this is also happening when we're seeing a lot more streams with TV everywhere. So while TV everywhere has been slow in the initial, efforts, we're seeing more and more streams that are being, kind of handled now. There's still a lot to be done, but I think we've seen some progress there. Broadband-only homes continue to increase. So this is also one of the drivers we think why you're seeing this shift from, traditional to online. When you think about how the market has evolved, the core OTT players, Netflix, Amazon, and Hulu. So what has happened is, fast forward today, I think last year, maybe a few months ago, was actually an inflection point in what we call this emergence of so-called virtual, internet service providers, virtual MVPDs. Names like Sony, PlayStation View. You also have Hulu announcing that they're going to do such a thing as well. So we're seeing, of course, Sling TV. So that is one area I think that's going to help to shape how the winners and losers shake out. This whole idea of getting narrowed, slimmer packages. And what has surprised us certainly is the whole idea that cable providers actually sending some of their customers to purchase slim down packages, what they call cord cutter packages. We would not have anticipated that even just a few years ago. On the content side, I think we're seeing an explosion of content, as I said, but what's surprising is that while the supply for content has exploded, by some accounts, I think there's north of 500 scripted shows today, more than double just a few years ago. This has coincided with a major upsurge in demand for content from all of these outlets. So we're not really seeing any major supply and demand imbalance, which maybe is counterintuitive. That's why if you're a content provider, you're actually sitting very pretty, because there's all sorts of ways that you can monetize this content despite amid the surge in the demand. Binge viewing is one phenomenon that we think is major driver to all of these trends. Netflix just recently came out with a study to show that this is accelerating not just in the US, but around the world. The barriers for entry for content creation have remain relatively low. And one of the things that we've also observed that is kind of changing the dynamics is more willingness by content providers and networks and the studios to kind of experiment with all kinds of windows and rights. One of the things that we are seeing now is the willingness to grant in-season stacking rights by the networks to the MVPD providers. So now this is happening while they're also monetizing this content with all of these proliferating OTT outlets. So that is also one of the interesting trends that I think we're watching very carefully. I mentioned tech innovation that has accelerated more than ever before. I think most people agree that the UI, the user interface and customer experience gets better by the day. And this is a good, it's a good thing to have, because that's driving the customer penetration and subscriptions. One thing also that I wanted to point out is that the integration of multi-channel with OTT households, I think, is really accelerating. So we expect over the next few years for the number of multi-channel OTT integrated households to continue to increase. We think that the deal that Comcast announced with Netflix just a few months ago is actually a watershed deal that will encourage a lot more pay TV providers to explore such opportunities. So that's again going to accelerate the availability of all of these cloud offerings. Obviously, Comcast X1 platform is one of the leading platforms out there when it comes to the cloud integration. So to have Netflix availability on that platform now, I think it's a big deal that perhaps the market is not fully recognized. That will come into effect by the end of this year. So expect next year to hear more about perhaps other providers going in that direction. We have also observed in the last few months, or actually in the past year or so, that analytics has become a very big part of what the underlying drivers out there. So this whole idea of big data, right? So there's a lot of big data now in the space that is being used to refine audience measures, target customers, etc., viewers. So dynamic ad insertion along those lines has become a reality. A lot of media companies actually moving from a dream to actually starting to generate significant revenues from dynamic ad insertion. CBS, for example, is looking for several $100 million of revenues from that. A whole lot of media companies. So that is also a testament to how the technology is keeping up, and the targeting tools are getting much better. Audience measurement, no discussion of this is complete without looking at how the audiences are being measured. Most media companies obviously will tell you that there's still a lot to be done, and I would agree with that. But over the last 2 years or so, we've seen some really major advances. And I might even go as far as saying that perhaps last year or this year would be a major inflection in terms of audience measurement. Nielsen, for example, has just launched a total audience measurement tool, ability to measure cross-platform. ComScore is the other provider. They're all moving into that direction. More panels to measure mobile viewing, out of home, etc. So there's definitely, when we talk to media companies, I think there's more consensus as to where the shifts are occurring. Now, the regulatory environment, I mentioned that as a critical component in terms of identifying potential winners and losers. The key developments there, just last month, I think the FCC came out with this revised set-top box proposals that will allow customers now to be able to download free apps from your cable provider without switching your provider, and all kinds of pro-consumer initiatives. I think this will bring. The cable companies have 2 years to implement that, so you can expect more innovation as a result of that. And there's obviously going to be winners and losers implications as a result. The other thing that FCC has done is in terms of data caps. They have become a little more assertive in terms of data caps, which obviously is something that's very important to the streaming video field. The Comcast, the Charter Time Warner Cable acquisition actually came with a 7-year prohibition on data caps. So that's a very crucial step that FCC has taken to move the industry in terms of opening up the set-top boxes, obviously with major implications to cloud development. So all of these considerations, how kind of putting it all together, we do believe that when you look at the marketplace, obviously the dominance of Netflix and the emergence of all of these new providers, and with cable and satellite companies also offering their own over-the-top offerings, I think there's a realization that the industry is shifting, and there's a whole lot of new upstarts within the space that some of you have never heard of. I wouldn't go into that for lack of time, but I do believe that, as I said earlier, it's not going to be a zero-sum game. There's some upstarts we think are really at the forefront of monetizing the content that they're getting and aggregating, and we do believe that the business models consideration is very important. We're seeing more and more experimentation. We're moving from an experimentation stage now towards what I call a realization stage. So we don't have much time. I've gotten the signal, but in the interest of time, I will wrap up here and hopefully be able to take some questions. I covered Netflix and Amazon. I've covered them for years. I've covered the cable and satellite companies. So it's interesting today where we sit today compared to where we sit even a few years ago. The pace of changes is just phenomenal. That frankly, it's really a very challenging task trying to predict what's going to happen. And as I said earlier, a lot of this is being driven by consumer behavior, which in itself is unpredictable. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you.